My name is Delilah Winters, I'm 28, and last Tuesday I discovered something that shattered everything I believed about family loyalty. What started as my parents skipping my housewarming party because my sister needed groceries ended with me watching their lies unravel on live television. The betrayal cut deeper than I ever imagined possible, but karma? Karma had plans I never saw coming. Some families are bound by blood, others by manipulation and deceit. Mine was about to learn the difference. Before I dive into this family drama that literally made headlines, drop a comment below telling me where you're watching from. If stories about family karma and sweet justice are your thing, smash that like button and subscribe because this tale of revenge is going to blow your mind. Trust me, you'll want to see how this unfolds. 3 months earlier, I'd finally saved enough to buy my first home. A modest 2-bedroom craftsman in Portland, Oregon, but it was mine. After years of working double shifts as a nurse while living in cramped apartments, I was beyond proud. I'd invited everyone for a housewarming party on Saturday afternoon, my parents, my older sister Margot, extended family, close friends. I'd spent weeks planning, ordering catering from our family's favorite Italian place, buying decorations, even hiring a small jazz trio because my mom always said she loved live music. Friday night, my phone rang. Mom's voice sounded strained. "Delilah, honey, your dad and I won't be able to make it tomorrow." My stomach dropped. What? Why? Is everything okay? Well, Margot called. She's having a really hard time right now, and she needs us to take her grocery shopping and help her organize her pantry. You know how she gets when she's overwhelmed. I stared at my freshly painted living room walls, speechless. Margot was 31, had no job despite our parents paying her rent, and had a habit of creating emergencies whenever attention wasn't focused on her. But groceries? Over my housewarming? Mom, I've been planning this for weeks. Everyone's coming. Can't Margot go grocery shopping literally any other day? Don't be selfish, Delilah. Your sister is struggling with her mental health. She needs our support right now. You're independent and successful, you'll be fine. That phrase hit like a slap. You'll be fine. The same words they'd used when they missed my nursing school graduation because Margot had a panic attack about a date. The same excuse when they skipped my promotion celebration because Margot needed help moving apartments for the 3rd time that year. What about Dad? Can't he at least stop by for an hour? We're a team, Delilah. Where I go, he goes. Margot needs both of us. After hanging up, I sat in my empty house, surrounded by party decorations that suddenly felt pathetic. My best friend Sarah arrived early the next morning to help set up. "They're really not coming?" she asked, watching me arrange cheese platters with shaking hands. Groceries are apparently more important than celebrating their younger daughter's first home. The party was beautiful despite everything. Neighbors stopped by, work colleagues came, friends from college made the drive from Seattle. Everyone kept asking where my parents were. I made excuses, smiled through the pain, and tried to focus on the people who actually showed up for me. Sunday morning, I was cleaning up when my phone buzzed with a text from my college roommate Emma, who lived in Los Angeles. "Girl, turn on Channel 7 News right now." Confused, I grabbed the remote. The weekend lifestyle segment was featuring Portland's most elegant garden parties. My blood turned to ice as the camera panned across a lavish outdoor celebration. There was my mother, radiant in a new dress I'd never seen, laughing with my father at what the reporter called the Henderson family's annual charity garden party. The Hendersons. Margot's wealthy boyfriend's parents. The reporter was interviewing attendees about the spectacular event that raised $15,000 for local arts programs. There was Margot, beaming in designer clothes, her arm linked with Brad Henderson III, talking about their commitment to community philanthropy. I watched my parents, who couldn't spare 2 hours for my housewarming, spending an entire weekend at a charity event I'd never heard them mention. My mother was even holding a small award, something about outstanding community support. The segment showed them arriving Friday evening for pre-party preparations, and the main event was clearly Saturday afternoon. The exact time they were supposedly too busy helping Margot organize her pantry to come to my house. My hands trembled as I rewound the segment, watching it again. There was no mistaking it. While I was making excuses to my guests about why my parents couldn't celebrate my milestone, they were attending a society event with my sister's boyfriend's family. An event that had obviously been planned for weeks, maybe months. The lies weren't just about missing my party. They were about priorities. About which daughter mattered. About who deserved their time, their pride, their presence. I screenshotted everything. The news segment, the timestamps, the photos of them clearly enjoying themselves while I'd spent my housewarming explaining their absence. Then I called Sarah. "You need to see something," I said, my voice eerily calm. After I sent her the screenshots, the silence stretched for a full minute. "Delilah," she finally whispered. This is really bad. They lied to my face. They chose to attend some fancy charity thing with Margot instead of celebrating my first home purchase. And they made me think I was being selfish for even asking. What are you going to do? I looked around my house, my beautiful, hard-earned home that my parents couldn't be bothered to see. For years, I'd accepted being the responsible daughter, the one who didn't need attention or support because I was independent and successful. I'd watched them drop everything for Margot's manufactured crises while treating my genuine achievements as afterthoughts. "I'm going to find out exactly how long this has been going on," I said. "And then I'm going to make sure the truth comes out." Something cold and determined settled in my chest. This wasn't just about a missed party anymore. This was about a pattern of deception, favoritism, and emotional manipulation that had apparently been going on for years. They'd made their choice clear: Margot's social climbing was worth more than my milestones. Now they were about to learn that actions have consequences. The next few days passed in a strange, crystalline clarity. Instead of confronting my parents immediately, I decided to investigate. If they'd lied about the garden party, what else had they lied about? I started with social media, something I'd never paid much attention to before. Margot's Instagram was a revelation. Photos going back months showed her at various upscale events with Brad Henderson III and his family. Art gallery openings, wine tastings, charity auctions, always with my parents in the background, sometimes tagged in the photos. There was my mother at a ladies' who lunch fundraiser 3 weeks ago, the same day she'd told me she couldn't help me move furniture because she was too exhausted from work. My father golfing with Brad Henderson Sr. last month, the weekend he'd claimed he was too busy with tax preparation to visit my new house. Each discovery felt like a physical blow. The pattern wasn't new, I'd just been too trusting to see it. I created a spreadsheet, cross-referencing every excuse my parents had given me over the past year with Margot's social media posts. The correlation was devastating. Every missed dinner, every declined invitation, every time they'd been too busy to celebrate my achievements, there was evidence of them attending events with Margot and the Hendersons instead. My nursing school graduation that they'd missed because Margot had a panic attack? She'd posted photos from Napa Valley that same weekend, wine tasting with Brad's family. The day they couldn't attend my promotion celebration because Margot needed help moving? Instagram showed them at a charity polo match. The most painful discovery came when I found a local newspaper's society page from 6 months ago. There was a full article about my parents being honored as community pillars at a healthcare fundraising gala, an event celebrating people who'd raised children in the medical field. The irony was suffocating. They'd accepted an award partially based on my career achievements at an event I'd never heard about, while simultaneously being too busy to acknowledge those same achievements with me. I called the newspaper. "Hi, I'm researching the healthcare gala from 6 months ago," I told the lifestyle reporter. "Could you tell me how the honorees were selected?" "Oh, the Martinez Community Service Awards?" Those were nominations submitted by family members or close friends. Let me check. Yes, the Winters family was nominated by their daughter Margot for their unwavering support of their younger daughter's nursing career and their commitment to healthcare philanthropy. My sister had nominated them for an award based on supporting my career. An award they'd accepted without ever mentioning it to me. Did they give a speech? I asked, my voice barely steady. Yes, actually. I have the transcript here. Mrs. Winters spoke about how proud they were of their daughter's dedication to nursing and how they'd always made her education their priority. She read me excerpts of my mother's speech, beautiful words about sacrifice, support, and family pride. Words about how they'd never missed an important moment in my career development. Words that were apparently complete fiction. That evening, I sat in my kitchen with printed copies of everything spread across the table like evidence at a crime scene. Photos, articles, social media screenshots, even the transcript of my mother's speech. The depth of their deception was breathtaking. My phone rang. Mom. Hi, honey. How are you settling into the new house? Her cheerful voice, so casual after what I'd discovered, made my stomach churn. Fine, I managed. Mom, can I ask you something? Of course. Last weekend, when you couldn't come to my housewarming, what exactly did you and Dad do with Margot? A pause. Well, we went grocery shopping like I told you. And then we helped her organize. It took most of the day, actually. You know how she gets when things feel chaotic. Which grocery store? Another pause, longer this time. Why are you asking? Just curious. I might want to shop there if they have good selection. Oh, I think it was Fred Meyer. Yes, Fred Meyer on Burnside. I looked down at the photo from the news segment, timestamped Saturday at 2 p.m., showing my parents raising champagne glasses at the garden party. That sounds nice, I said calmly. I'm glad you could help her feel more organized. We're always here for both our daughters, Delilah. You know that. After we hung up, I sat in the silence of my house, the house they'd been too busy to visit, too occupied to celebrate. The house I'd achieved entirely on my own while believing I had their support. I thought about every time I'd defended them to friends who pointed out their favoritism. Every excuse I'd made for their absences, telling myself they were just overwhelmed, that Margot needed more help, that my independence meant I required less attention. But this wasn't about needing help or attention. This was about respect. About honesty. About basic acknowledgement of my worth as their daughter. They hadn't just chosen Margot over me, they'd created an elaborate fiction to hide that choice. They'd accepted awards for supporting me while actively excluding me from their social lives. They'd built a narrative where I was the low-maintenance daughter who didn't need them while positioning themselves as devoted parents in their social circle. I opened my laptop and began typing. Not an angry confrontation, not an emotional plea. A carefully worded email that would change everything. The subject line was simple: we need to talk. But first, I needed to make one more phone call. To the lifestyle reporter at Channel 7 who'd covered the garden party. Hi, this is Delilah Winters, I said. I saw your segment about the Henderson charity event, and I have a story idea you might find interesting. It's about family expectations, hidden priorities, and what happens when the truth comes out. I'm listening, she said. How would you feel about covering a follow-up story? About the real cost of social climbing and what happens to family relationships when image becomes more important than integrity. As I outlined my proposal, I felt something shift inside me. For the first time in years, I wasn't making excuses for my parents' behavior. I wasn't trying to minimize my hurt or rationalize their choices. I was taking control of the narrative they'd written without my consent. The next morning, I called in sick to work for the first time in 2 years. I wasn't physically ill, but I needed time to process what I'd discovered and plan my next moves carefully. This wasn't about revenge, it was about truth. About making sure that the narrative my parents had constructed, where they were devoted supporters of my career while I was the self-sufficient daughter who didn't need them, was finally challenged with facts. I started by reaching out to family members I hadn't spoken to in months. My Aunt Caroline, my father's sister, had always been the family truth-teller. She lived across the country but stayed connected through social media and occasional phone calls. "Caroline, it's Delilah," I said when she answered. "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me." "Oh honey, what's wrong? You sound upset." I took a deep breath. "Have Mom and Dad ever mentioned feeling like they needed to choose between supporting me and supporting Margot?" The silence stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. "Delilah," she finally said, her voice careful. "What brought this on?" "They missed my housewarming party last weekend. Said Margot needed help with groceries. Then I saw them on the news at some charity event with her boyfriend's family." "Oh, sweetie." The sadness in her voice told me everything. "How long has this been going on? You know about this?" "I've been watching it happen for years. Every family gathering, every holiday, the conversations always center around Margot's latest crisis or achievement. Your accomplishments get mentioned in passing, if at all." I've wanted to say something, but... "But what?" "Your parents have convinced themselves that you're so independent and successful that you don't need the same level of support. They've created this narrative where helping you would somehow diminish your accomplishments, while helping Margot is necessary for her survival." My hands were shaking. "So everyone's noticed? Your cousin Jake mentioned it at Christmas. Said it felt like there were two different standards for daughters in your family. And your Uncle Robert asked me privately why your parents never seem to celebrate your milestones the way they do Margot's relationship developments." I felt vindicated and heartbroken simultaneously. It wasn't just my perception, the favoritism was obvious enough that extended family had noticed and discussed it. "Caroline, there's more." I told her about the society pages, the awards, the elaborate lies about their whereabouts. "Jesus, Delilah. That's not favoritism anymore. That's deception. I'm thinking about doing something public about this. Not to hurt them, but to make sure the truth comes out." "What kind of public?" I explained my conversation with the Channel 7 reporter. "She wants to do a follow-up story about the hidden costs of family image management. I'd be interviewed anonymously, but the facts would be on record." "Are you sure you want to go nuclear?" "They went nuclear first. They just did it quietly, behind my back, for years. After we hung up, I called my college friend Emma in Los Angeles. As a marketing executive, she understood media strategy. You need to document everything before you go public, she advised. Screenshots, dates, witnesses. Make it impossible for them to deny or minimize. Already done. Good. Now, what's your endgame? What do you want to achieve? I considered this carefully. I want them to acknowledge what they've done. I want the community that sees them as devoted parents to understand the full picture. And I want to stop pretending that their behavior is acceptable just because I'm family. That's fair. But be prepared for backlash. They're going to paint you as jealous, ungrateful, vindictive. Let them try. I have documentation. That afternoon, I met with Rebecca Martinez, the Channel 7 lifestyle reporter, at a coffee shop downtown. She was younger than I'd expected, maybe early 30s, with an intensity that suggested she took her work seriously. "I've been researching your family since our conversation," she said, pulling out a tablet. "The Henderson connection is interesting. Brad Henderson III's family has significant influence in Portland's charity circuit. Your parents have become regular fixtures at their events over the past year. Since Margot started dating him." Exactly. And according to social media and society page coverage, They'd been presenting themselves as a close-knit family unit at these events. Lots of photos showing family togetherness, community involvement, traditional values. She showed me screenshots I hadn't seen, my parents and Margot at various charity functions, always positioned as the perfect family supporting local causes. Here's what makes this newsworthy, Rebecca continued. It's not just about family favoritism. It's about social climbing using family connections, and the cost of maintaining false narratives in community leadership circles. What do you mean? Your parents have leveraged their connection to the Hendersons to gain access to Portland's charity elite. But they've done it by essentially erasing you from the family narrative when it's convenient, while simultaneously accepting recognition for your achievements when it benefits their social standing. She was right. The award they'd accepted was based on my career, but I'd been excluded from the celebration and never mentioned in their acceptance speech. I want to be fair to all parties, Rebecca said. I've reached out to your parents for comment. Left messages yesterday asking about their community involvement and family values. My stomach clenched. What did you tell them? Just that I was doing a follow-up piece on families and community leadership and wanted their perspective. Nothing specific. Have they responded? Not yet. But I did hear back from someone unexpected. She smiled. I contacted several families who've been honored at similar events. 3 different people mentioned feeling uncomfortable with what they perceived as performative family dynamics at charity functions. Meaning? One woman said she watched her mother give a speech about family sacrifice and dedication, then overheard her telling someone else that her high-achieving daughter was too independent to need family support. The contradiction struck her as odd. I felt a mix of vindication and humiliation. Other people had noticed the disconnect between my parents' public statements and their private attitudes. Another family mentioned seeing your parents at multiple events over the past year, always with Margot and her boyfriend, but they'd never seen or heard about a second daughter despite the awards and speeches mentioning one. So I'm like a theoretical daughter. Useful for acceptance speeches but not worth including in real life. That's essentially what I'm documenting. The performance of family values versus the reality of family dynamics. We talked for another hour about the interview process, fact-checking procedures, and my comfort level with various approaches. Rebecca assured me that my identity could be protected while still telling the story effectively. One more thing, she said as we prepared to leave. I spoke with the Portland Business Journal. Your nursing career and community health work have been mentioned in several articles over the past few years. You've apparently volunteered at 3 different free clinics and organized vaccination drives in underserved neighborhoods. That's just my job. No, it's not. These were volunteer efforts, unpaid community service. The kind of thing that usually gets family members invited to charity events as honored guests. She paused. Yet there's no record of you attending any charity functions with your parents, despite your obvious qualifications and community involvement. The implication hit me like a physical blow. Not only had they excluded me from their social climbing, they'd excluded me from events where my actual community service would have made me a legitimate honoree in my own right. I think, Rebecca said gently, this story is going to be more impactful than either of us initially realized. As I drove home, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years, clarity. For too long, I'd accepted their explanation that Margot needed more support, that my independence meant I required less attention. But the evidence showed something different entirely. They hadn't been supporting Margot's needs, they'd been supporting their own social ambitions. And they'd used both daughters to do it. Margot as their entry point into elite social circles, and me as their credibility for community service awards. The question now wasn't whether to go public with the truth. The question was whether I was strong enough to handle the fallout when I did. 3 days later, my phone rang at 7 a.m. It was my mother, and her voice had an edge I'd never heard before. Delilah, we need to talk. A reporter has been calling us asking strange questions about our family and community involvement. My heart pounded, but my voice stayed steady. What kind of questions? Questions about you. About why you're never at charity events with us. About whether we support all our children equally. She paused. Did you talk to a reporter? Mom, we should probably have this conversation in person. Fine. Come over this afternoon. Your father and I want to understand what's happening. I arrived at their house at 2 p.m., armed with printed copies of everything I'd discovered. Margot's car was in the driveway, of course she was there. They were waiting in the living room, all three of them, looking like a tribunal. My mother's face was tight with anxiety, my father looked confused, and Margot appeared annoyed at having her afternoon interrupted. Sit down, Delilah, Mom said. Explain why a reporter is asking questions about our family dynamics. I placed my folder on the coffee table. Because I told her the truth about what happened last weekend. What truth? Dad asked. We helped Margot with groceries. I opened the folder and pulled out the Channel 7 screenshots. You mean while you were helping her organize her pantry, you were also raising champagne glasses at the Henderson charity garden party? The silence was deafening. Margot's face went pale. How did you, Mom started? It was on television, Mom. The same afternoon you were supposedly too busy to come to my housewarming. I laid out photo after photo. Social media screenshots, society page articles, the newspaper transcript of Mom's speech about never missing important moments in my career. You accepted an award 6 months ago for supporting my nursing career. An award Margot nominated you for. At an event I never heard about, while giving a speech about how you've always been there for me. Dad picked up the speech transcript, reading it with growing horror. I don't understand. We are proud of you. Are you? Because here's what I found. I showed them the spreadsheet. Every time you've missed something important to me in the past year, you were actually at an event with Margot and the Hendersons. Margot finally spoke. Delilah, you're being dramatic. Brad's family includes us in their charity work. It's important for our relationship. More important than your sister's milestones? You don't need us there. You're successful and independent. I need more support right now. Support? Or social climbing opportunities? Mom's voice rose. That's enough. We've always been fair to both of you. Fair? I pulled out my phone and opened Margot's Instagram. Here's you at Napa Valley the weekend you had a panic attack and needed them to miss my graduation. Here's the polo match they attended instead of my promotion celebration. Here's the art gallery opening they chose over helping me move. Each photo landed like a bomb. My parents' faces showed dawning realization of how thoroughly their deceptions had been documented. And this, I said, showing them the society page photo of them accepting the Community Service Award, is you accepting recognition for raising a daughter in healthcare while that same daughter has never been invited to a single one of these events. Dad stood up abruptly. Delilah, we can explain. Explain what? That you've been lying to me for over a year? That you've built a social life around excluding me while simultaneously taking credit for my achievements? That you've convinced yourselves I don't deserve the same consideration as Margot because I'm successful? We didn't mean, Mom began. You didn't mean to get caught. I gathered my papers. The reporter's story airs Monday night. She called you for comment because she wanted to be fair. I suggest you think carefully about what you want to say. Margot jumped up. You can't do this. Do you know what this could do to Brad's family's reputation? To our relationship? Your relationship built on lies and social climbing? I'm not particularly concerned. You're being vindictive. I'm being honest. Something this family apparently struggles with. Dad tried one more time. Delilah, surely we can work this out privately. Why involve the media? I looked at my parents, these people who'd raised me, who'd taught me values they apparently didn't practice, who'd made me question my own worth for years. Because private conversations require honesty, and you've proven you're not capable of that. Because you've spent months accepting recognition for supporting me while actively excluding me from your lives. Because you made me believe I was selfish for wanting my parents at my housewarming while you were attending garden parties. I headed for the door, then turned back. The saddest part is that I would have understood if you'd just been honest. If you'd said Margot's relationship was important to you, if you'd admitted you enjoyed the social opportunities with the Hendersons. But instead, you created elaborate lies and made me feel guilty for having normal expectations. Delilah, wait, Mom called. I'm done waiting, Mom. I've been waiting for years for you to treat me with the same consideration you show Margot. The story airs Monday at 6 p.m. I suggest you watch it. As I drove away, I felt something I'd never experienced before, complete certainty that I was doing the right thing. The little girl who'd spent years making excuses for her parents' behavior was gone. In her place was a woman who refused to accept lies as love. My phone started ringing immediately, first Mom, then Dad, then Margot. I let them all go to voicemail. The first message was from Mom, tearful and pleading. Delilah, please call us back. We can fix this. We never meant to hurt you. The second was from Dad, angry now, you're destroying this family over a misunderstanding. This is not how we raised you. The third was from Margot, panicked, you have to stop this. Brad's parents are going to see this. You're ruining everything. I saved all 3 messages. Evidence of their priorities even in crisis, Mom focused on managing damage, Dad on blame, and Margot on how this affected her social prospects. None of them had acknowledged that their behavior was wrong. None had apologized for the lies or the years of favoritism. Their concern was entirely about consequences, not actions. Rebecca called that evening. I heard from your parents. They want to meet tomorrow to set the record straight. Are you meeting with them? Absolutely. Their response is part of the story now. But Delilah, are you prepared for them to paint you as an ungrateful daughter seeking attention? I thought about the awards they'd accepted for my achievements, the lies they'd told about their whereabouts, the years of making me feel selfish for wanting basic parental support. Let them try. I have documentation of everything. Monday morning arrived with unexpected consequences. I woke to 17 missed calls and dozens of text messages. The story hadn't even aired yet, but word was spreading through Portland's tight-knit charity community. The first text was from Aunt Caroline, your parents called me at midnight, sobbing. They want me to convince you to stop the story. I told them they should have thought about consequences before lying to you for a year. The second was from my colleague Sarah. Girl, whatever's happening, half the hospital is talking about your family drama. Did your parents really lie about charity events? Apparently, my mother had called several family members and family friends in a panic, trying to build support for their version of events. But her frantic calls had backfired, spreading news of the upcoming story to people who might not have otherwise known about it. My supervisor at the hospital, Janet, called me directly. Delilah, I've been getting strange calls. Someone claiming to be your mother called asking about your work schedule and whether you'd been acting unstable lately. What's going on? My family situation is about to become very public. I wanted you to hear it from me first. I explained the basic situation, the lies, the charity events, the excluded invitations. Janet listened quietly. Delilah, I've known you for 5 years. You're one of our most reliable nurses and you volunteer more community hours than anyone in this department. If your family can't see that, it's their loss. I just don't want this to affect my work. It won't. But I'm glad you told me. For what it's worth, you're doing the right thing. Honesty matters. At 3 p.m., Rebecca called with an update about her meeting with my parents. It was interesting, she said carefully. Your mother spent most of the time crying and insisting they're good parents who made mistakes. Your father tried to minimize everything, saying it was just scheduling conflicts and that you were overreacting to normal family dynamics. What about the lies? The fake grocery shopping story? Your father claimed that was a miscommunication and that they'd planned to mention the charity event later. Your mother said they didn't want to hurt your feelings by admitting they had other plans. So they're still lying. Pretty much. But here's the interesting part, your sister showed up halfway through the interview, extremely agitated, and essentially confirmed everything you told me. What? She was angry that your parents weren't handling the situation better. She started listing all the events you'd missed, all the times they'd chosen Henderson family activities over supporting you. She was trying to justify their choices, but she ended up providing a detailed timeline of their deception. I laughed despite myself. She incriminated them? Completely. She also made several statements about how you didn't need as much support and how their social connections with the Henderson family were important for her future. She essentially confirmed that their choices were deliberate and ongoing. Did they know she was sabotaging their defense? I don't think any of them realized how their statements sounded on camera. Your parents kept insisting they love both daughters equally, while your sister kept explaining why you deserved less attention. Rebecca paused. There's something else. After the interview, I received calls from 3 other families in Portland's charity circuit. Apparently, your parents' behavior at events had been noticed by others. What kind of behavior? Inconsistent stories about their family. Your mother would talk about her successful nurse daughter at some events, but when people asked to meet you or invite the whole family to gatherings, she'd say you were too busy with work or not interested in social events. My stomach twisted. They'd been using me as a conversation piece while actively preventing me from participating in their social world. One woman said she'd specifically asked about including you in a healthcare fundraiser, and your mother said you preferred to keep your professional and personal life separate. Another family mentioned wanting to honor you for your community clinic work, but your parents said you were too modest to accept recognition. They were gatekeeping my own opportunities? It appears so. And several people mentioned that your sister would sometimes make comments about how you didn't understand or wouldn't appreciate certain social situations. The manipulation was even deeper than I'd realized. They hadn't just excluded me, they'd actively prevented others from including me, all while maintaining the fiction that the exclusion was my choice. At 5:30, 30 minutes before the story was scheduled to air, my phone rang. Mom, calling from Dad's number. Delilah, please. Don't let this story destroy our family. You destroyed our family when you chose to lie to me for over a year. We made mistakes, but we can fix this privately. Think about what this will do to Margot's relationship, to our reputation in the community. I am thinking about it. That's exactly why I'm doing this. You're being cruel. I'm being honest. Something you apparently struggle with. Dad took the phone. If you do this, don't expect us to welcome you back with open arms. The threat hung in the air. Choose silence, or lose your family. Dad, I haven't had a family for years. I just didn't realize it until now. I hung up and turned on Channel 7. The story was devastating and fair. Rebecca had done excellent work, presenting facts without sensationalism. The timeline of lies was laid out clearly, supported by documentation and witness statements. The contradiction between my parents' public image and private actions was undeniable. The most damaging moment came when they played audio from Margot's interview, where she casually mentioned all the times I'd been excluded from events because I wouldn't have enjoyed them anyway. The story ended with Rebecca's conclusion: in Portland's competitive charity circuit, the pressure to maintain perfect family images can sometimes create painful realities behind closed doors. This family story raises questions about authenticity, social climbing, and the real cost of community status. My phone immediately exploded with notifications. Texts from friends, calls from extended family members, and surprisingly, messages from complete strangers who'd seen the story and wanted to share their own experiences with family favoritism. The most meaningful message came from my colleague Janet. Watched the story. You handled yourself with incredible dignity. Come in tomorrow when you're ready. Your work family is here for you. But the most telling response was the silence from my parents and Margot. No calls, no texts, no attempts to apologize or explain. Their silence told me everything I needed to know about their priorities. 6 weeks after the story aired, I was sitting in my kitchen, the same kitchen where I'd discovered the lies that changed everything, reading an email that made me smile for the first time in months. Dear Ms. Winters, it began. The Portland Community Health Alliance would like to invite you to be the keynote speaker at our annual fundraising gala, honoring your volunteer work with underserved populations and your courage in advocating for authentic family values in community leadership. The irony wasn't lost on me. The charity community that my parents had worked so hard to impress was now inviting me, not as their daughter, but for my own merits. The weeks following the news story had been a whirlwind of unexpected consequences. The response from viewers had been overwhelming, with hundreds of people sharing similar stories of family favoritism and social manipulation. Rebecca had followed up with a series exploring performative family values and community leadership, which had sparked conversations across Portland about authenticity versus image management. More surprisingly, 3 families had quietly resigned from charity boards after the story prompted questions about their own family dynamics and social motivations. The Henderson family, embarrassed by the association with my parents' deception, had distanced themselves from Margot and Brad's relationship. Brad, apparently mortified by his family's social circle discussing his girlfriend's dysfunctional family drama, had broken up with Margot 2 weeks after the story aired. My parents had lost their charity circuit access overnight, their credibility destroyed by their documented lies and my sister's on-camera admissions. They'd also lost their social status, their community standing, and most painfully for them, their carefully constructed image as devoted family leaders. But I'd gained something unexpected: peace. The silence from my family had lasted exactly 1 month before Aunt Caroline called with news. Your parents want to apologize, she'd said. They're asking if you'll meet with them. Are they ready to acknowledge what they actually did wrong, or do they just want to manage the damage to their reputation? Honestly, I think they're finally starting to understand the difference. What changed? Losing everything they thought was important. The charity boards, the social events, the community recognition, it's all gone. And Margot is furious with them for ruining her life by getting caught. She's barely speaking to them. So they're learning what it feels like to be the child who doesn't get support. Exactly. I'd agreed to meet them the previous weekend. The conversation had been painful but necessary. My mother had cried genuine tears, not the manipulative tears of someone trying to avoid consequences, but the broken tears of someone finally understanding the pain they'd caused. I convinced myself that you were so strong, so independent, that you didn't need us the way Margot did, she'd said. But that was just an excuse to justify giving her what she wanted and giving you what was convenient for us. Dad had been harder to reach, his pride still wounded, but even he had eventually acknowledged the systematic nature of their deception. We got caught up in feeling important, he'd admitted. Having access to that social world made us feel successful as parents. We thought supporting Margot's relationship was supporting our whole family's future. What about supporting my present? I'd asked. We took that for granted. We took you for granted. The apology had been real, but I'd been clear about my boundaries going forward. I'm not interested in resuming the old relationship, I'd told them. If you want to rebuild something with me, it has to be based on honesty and equal treatment. No more elaborate excuses, no more choosing Margot's wants over my needs, and no more using my achievements for your social credit while excluding me from your actual lives. What does that look like practically? Mom had asked. It means if you commit to something with me, you follow through. It means if you're invited to social events, you either include me or you're honest about why you're not. It means treating my milestones with the same enthusiasm you show for Margot's relationship updates. They'd agreed, but rebuilding trust would take time. And honestly, I wasn't sure I wanted to invest that time. Margot, predictably, had blamed me for destroying the family and ruining her life. She'd sent a series of angry texts calling me vindictive, jealous, and selfish. I'd blocked her number after the 5th message. If she ever wanted to acknowledge her role in the deception and manipulation, I'd consider talking to her. But I wasn't holding my breath. The most unexpected outcome had been the connections I'd made with other people who'd experienced similar family dynamics. The story had prompted dozens of people to reach out, sharing their own experiences with golden child dynamics, social climbing families, and parental favoritism. I'd started volunteering with a support group for adults dealing with family estrangement and toxic family dynamics. Helping others recognize and address similar patterns had given me a sense of purpose beyond my nursing career. My social life had actually improved dramatically. Without the constant stress of managing my parents' expectations and making excuses for their behavior, I'd had energy to invest in friendships and activities that brought me joy. I'd joined a hiking group, started taking pottery classes, and was even dating someone, a fellow nurse named Marcus who'd heard my story and respected my boundaries around family drama. The house that my parents had been too busy to celebrate had become exactly what I'd hoped, a sanctuary filled with people who genuinely valued my presence. Looking back, I realized that the news story hadn't destroyed my family, it had revealed that the family I thought I had never really existed. What had been destroyed was an illusion, a performance, a carefully maintained fiction that had been slowly suffocating my sense of self-worth. The real family I was building now, chosen friends, supportive colleagues, romantic connections based on mutual respect, was infinitely more valuable than the biological family that had required me to minimize myself to maintain their comfort. As I finished reading the speaking invitation, my phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. Proud of you for standing up for yourself. You've inspired a lot of people to examine their own family dynamics. She was right. The story had ripple effects beyond my own situation, prompting conversations about authenticity, family expectations, and the courage required to challenge toxic patterns. I thought about that scared, hurt woman who'd sat in this same kitchen 6 weeks ago, surrounded by evidence of her family's deception, wondering if she was strong enough to handle the fallout from telling the truth. She'd been stronger than she knew. Now, I want to hear from all of you who've made it this far in my story. Have you ever discovered that your family's public image didn't match their private treatment of you? Have you had to choose between keeping family peace and demanding basic respect? Drop a comment below sharing your own experiences with family karma. I read every single one and your stories mattered just as much as mine. If this resonated with you, smash that like button to help other people find this story who might need to hear it. Subscribe for more real-life drama and justice-served moments, because unfortunately, there are way too many families out there playing favorites and calling it love. And please share this video with anyone who might need permission to stop making excuses for family members who don't treat them with basic respect. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is refuse to accept less than you deserve. Thank you for listening to my story and for all the support you've shown. Remember, blood might make you related, but respect and honesty make you family. Choose your people wisely, and never be afraid to choose yourself when others won't. Until next time, keep standing up for your truth.